Hello class. This little video here is for the next week. I just wanted to touch base with everybody, let everybody know what's going to be happening in the coming week or two. Go over a couple of things some people seem to be having some trouble with. A few things like that. Alright, well, first off, we are in the second week, or third week actually now, of the Word chapter. We're finished chapter 1. So we're actually going to move on to the next chapters, but we're not actually going to go to chapter 2. Chapter 2, we're actually going to skip it, because to do chapter 2 we have to write papers, and I figure everyone's writing enough papers in English, music and art appreciation, maybe even history and some other classes. I don't need you to write papers here. The only thing I need to show you how to do is how to use Word, maybe when you're writing papers and stuff like that. And we've already talked a little bit about that. For example, how to put things in the header. You just double click at the top and you can insert page numbers and stuff like that. And last name or something like that in front. And you just do that just by double clicking on the top. I'm going to undo that. Oop. Now, we also to mention references and things like that. You can actually insert your references here. Add new source, and then just add your own reference. If you already have some saved, you can click here and just add them to the current list. You can select whatever format you want, which typically would be MLA, and then you just simply drop it in. Bibliography, for example, and it'll put it in the appropriate format. You can also use websites like EasyBib. In fact, you can go to that website, put in your book, and it will not only fill it out for you, but put it in the correct format. It will actually fill out every little thing, every little detail from year to whatever else is asked for. So those are just a couple of the sites you can actually use. Now as far as writing papers, that's more of an English thing. So I figure we will go a little bit in chapter 3 and then move on. So this week we're going to do a little bit of chapter 3, not quite as much as we did in chapter 1. So there's only a few new ideas here, a few new formatting things that you guys should know. Now we're going to talk about that in a minute, but first let's talk about what issues people seem to have. Now, so far this week I've had a fair number of people turn in their assignments. I've had some people turn in their assignments and they weren't quite right. Keep in mind you can turn them back in, and I will regrade them if you fix them. Some of the big issues people seem to be having, for example, font, theme, colors, and things like that. Now if I were to type something like this, it's set to a certain font. Normally it's Calibri. Now if I go down and I choose any of these other fonts, let's say Franklin Gothic Heavy, for example, I could increase the size, say there. There it is, it fills the top of the page. It's nice, it's dark. Now I can change the font color if I want. That's this red underline. You see I've got numerous different colors. We start at the top with dark green and whatever other colors happen to be up here. And if I go down, you'll see I've got lighter, 80%, 40%, and then I go into the darker. So if you're having trouble finding the lighter and the darker, it's just lighters in the top and darkers in the bottom. And without the light dark, it's in this very top row right here. And your standard colors are down here. Now depending on what theme you have, the font's going to be a little different. Now just terminology-wise, font is how the letters look basically. Different fonts have different sets. This looks completely different than the previous one, as you can see. It's just how the letters appear. Now text effect is this blue A. If you click text effect, you've got a whole list of different text effects up here. And you can go down here and further add little things like reflections and shadows and outlines and stuff. But these are your base ones you got up here. Now if I go up here and I select one of these, you'll see if I hover over it for just a second, I've got this long name. Fill dark green accent 5 outline. Background 1, hard shadow, accent 5, for example. You'll see that in your assignments. Now you got to learn to read specifically what they're saying. The assignment says change the text effect of this headline, which is the first line, to, and it may give you this long phrase that looks very similar to that. If it says text effect, you go here. A lot of people are breaking that up into little bitty parts, like, oh, I need this, and then there's a hard shadow, what is that, and there's this. It's generally going to be right up here. You just have to simply hover around till you find it. Now, if you cannot find the color you're looking for, it's probably because they told you to change the theme colors. Theme colors are not here. They are under design. Themes, on the left, they're a set of fonts, colors, basically how the whole document's going to look. Spacing. Now, if they say change theme, this is where you change the theme. It changes all those. If they say change the theme colors, they're talking about under design to go over here. And if I change these theme colors, you notice it's changing a little bit right now. That's because I've already colored it. If this was black, it wouldn't change at all. You wouldn't even notice it changing. Now if I scroll down and I pick one of these others, you'll see my colors change. And basically all that does is change the colors that I've got available. So now I've got different colors, as you can see. Shading is another thing people seem to be having issues with. Highlight is here, and we're never going to use that. Shading, on the other hand, is this here. And this actually, let's highlight that again. There you go. We'll shade pretty much the whole line, like this. And it's a paint bucket, and the colors are going to change based on what theme or theme color and stuff that you've got set as well. Now if you have to press enter and all these colors are still there, you can use this little eraser up here to clear the formatting, and it'll set it back to normal again. Just a quick little tip there. Now, you can turn on the little formatting marks. I don't really care for them, so I usually turn them off. Now pictures, if we insert a picture, and I will just use a random picture. Alright. I can resize in the bottom right hand corner. If I click off of it, you see there's no menu up here. If I click on it, suddenly there's a menu. Although you may not necessarily be on it. But if you click it, you see I've got everything from corrections to artistic effects to colors and various other things here. Now here I have picture styles. Some of the assignment directions will say, change the picture styles. Well, this is where you go. There's a little arrow here that shows you the rest of them that are hidden. And if you hover over one, you'll see it has a name. Now typically the book will tell you specifically what name they want. Bevel rectangle, or soft edge oval, or whatever it is. I think the very first one was simple black frame or something like that. Let's see if we can find that. Simple frame white. There we go. And if we keep going, you'll see that there's things with reflections and various other things. There's double frames. Simple frame black, there it is. Now, I can select this, and you see it's just like this. Now if I want to center it, I have to hit the center button. And that'll put it in the center of the page. Now, you can also resize over here. Now, any assignment you do, if for some reason it ends up on like 2 pages, and everything looks like you've done it right, you can resize the picture a little bit and shrink it a little bit till it fits. Now, we've gone over those couple of things. Page borders seem to give some people an issue. It's under design as well. You just have to make sure that you select box before you go down and select what border and whatever color and art or whatever it is you need. Once you select that, then boom, you'll get a page border. And sometimes it just takes a little bit of practice, and that's why we're doing so many assignments. Alright, now, as for stuff that we're going to be doing from now on, let me go ahead and erase this. This next chapter is going to have some formatting options that are actually somewhat useful. That's why we're going to go through it a little bit. We're going to have about 3 assignments. Next week, we're going to have our test. We're actually going to start a little bit of Excel, and then we're going to have the test. Now, all of the Word assignments are due next week, Friday, from the time of this video. That means I've had a few people who, like in the post that I sent out, the mail I sent out earlier, who have done maybe 1 assignment or 2 assignments. If you're several assignments behind, you need to do these assignments before the test, not 5 minutes before. The point of the assignments is to get you ready for the test. If you've done all the assignments, there's really not much to study. Maybe some terms that I've mentioned, and I'll try to mention at the end of this video again. But you will have done everything that I'm going to ask you to do already in the assignments. If you have not done the assignments, you will find it very hard to pass because the assignments tell you what you need to know for the test. And if you haven't done that when you get to the test, you won't know when I'm asking you to change this font or add this text effect or anything like that. And the test is going to be part terminology, part practical. You have to make something. So it's not something you can kind of BS your way through. You have to have done the assignments and know what I'm asking you. Now, that being said, try to get them done as quickly as you can, preferably before. And remember, you have to do at least 1 per week. Those of you who are online, or otherwise it counts as an absence. But all the assignments are due finally next week. So if you're a little bit behind, you can still catch up and turn them all in. And if there's anything messed up, I will grade it and give it back to you, and you just have to fix it. And I will regrade it as long as it's before next week. Now, insert. We also have things like shapes and tables and things like that. This chapter is going to go over a couple of things that you haven't used yet. Some of them are actually pretty useful. Let's take shapes, for example. I can click a rectangle and draw this on the screen. Now I can adjust the colors however I like. I can even come up here and adjust alignments and positions and where the text and picture should be centered, the size of the picture. I can move it around here, there. There's actually a lot of options you can have with this. I can give it different effects like glows and things like that. Now I can also give it text effects. I'm just going to right click on this and I can add text to it. So basically I can just write woo-ha-ha-ha. Feel the word. And of course, just like regular text, I can actually come over here and I can resize it. I can bring up the little mini bar if I highlight it and just let go. So I can come up here and say, well, this should be 48. And the font should be, maybe that Franklin Gothic heavy. Doesn't look like that fits, so I may have to go a little bit smaller. There we go. And I could even, after I highlight all this, give it certain styles, increase, change the font color if I like. We'll go with something a little more, too bright. Let's go with, something like that. Might not be bad. There we go. Alright. Now, another term. If it's underlined in red, typically that means it's misspelled. Of course, I put in moo-ha-ha-ha, so that's not really a word, and it's letting me know that. If you happen to see it underlined in blue, that means there's a grammar error somewhere that Word can't quite recognize. That's not always the case, but if it's underlined in blue, grammar, red, well, spelling error. Microsoft Word itself is used to type papers and documents, things like that. I told you I'd go through some of the terms you'd have to know. Hopefully you guys are taking notes. Now, this is one of the things you'll have to do. Make a little header. You can make a header for a letter. In fact, Chapter 3 that we're going to go through here is all about writing some business letters, and we're just going to do a few of them before we finish up and move on to Excel. Now, you can also insert tables, which I've discussed a little bit already. We can insert varying rows and things like that. Let's say I go 3 by 3, for example. I can adjust the size. I can come up here and do a number of different things to it. Now, we're not going to use half of these, so you don't have to worry too much about it, but I can color these. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can do with this. I can type in, you know, let's see here, north, south, east. And then I could put in maybe numbers or data or things like that. Sales, purchases, whatever information I want. I want to put numbers and things like that. Of course, I could also insert an Excel actual file into this. A lot of these Word, Excel, PowerPoint are all interconnected, so you can actually put things from one document, one program into the other. Now, as far as the table and the header and things like that, that's two of the bigger things you're going to see this chapter. Now, of course, once I have a table, let me click off of it, you see my little menu went away. If I click on it again, I have design and layout. In design, just like picture styles, I've got a whole set here of little things that will change the colors and things like that. For example, here. Now it looks completely different. I got this kind of this header color. I got these things that I can put in, you know, numbers and stuff if I wanted to, or more words or whatever I need, like that. I can even resize this thing if I need to, make it bigger, smaller, and if necessary, move it around to a certain extent. You don't want to do that too much because it kind of mess up some things. But ta-da! That's most of what you're going to see this chapter. So there's one or two other little things. We're going to start off with the chapter exercise. And you're basically just going to walk through. And most of the stuff you are going to be asked to do, you've done before. Bullets, you know, change some fonts, change some colors and stuff like that, some spacing. The only two major things are these two here. Tables and adjusting shapes and colors and things like that. Of course, there will be a little bit of stuff with pictures, for example. I showed you when we inserted that picture before. But there's also different corrections and colors and artistic effects and stuff that you can get. There we go, that looks nice. But we'll go through a little bit of that as well. There's not a huge amount of extra stuff that you haven't seen, but we can also revert it back to normal. But this is basically the gist of it. Now, I think that should be about